I'm not sure when it cut off. I have no idea when that cut off. That's funny. So, yeah. Very strange. See what YouTube is doing right now. It seems to be having a little bit of an issue. Before I continue, I'm going to make sure that this is connected and working. Looks like it is. Okay. Yep, there we go. All right, good. So then I feel better. That said, sorry about that. I guess it's part of the process. So I had a note here about seeing yourself through the eyes of the world, right? I spoke about this a little bit yesterday about it's funny. There's this idea about flipping the lens. You know, one way that we can do that as an example is like to put our attention in different places. You know, we can do that just sitting here in our own state that we're in right now, as far as, you know, draw our attention to our ears and just pay attention to what we're hearing, or draw attention to our eyes and only pay attention to what we're seeing and process it mentally later. Go into our body. Like, what does my big toe feel like on my left foot? What does it feel like on my right foot, right? And it takes the attention out of your mind and into your body or into the world. And the thing to remember is that when you're paying attention to the big toe on your left foot, that's you speaking in the language of big toe. That vibration, that sort of awareness that you feel in the toe physically, that you're feeling, is the voice of your soul. That's you speaking. That's your voice. And you can get a familiarity with that sensation in different parts of your body, right? Your feet and how they feel, and your hands and how they feel. Recognize that difference, and then, you know, go past your body and look out into your environment and recognize that the colors are you talking. And it can be read the same way that you read the tarot. We're about to do some readings, and you can apply the algorithm if you're confused about what it is you're looking at. Like, what am I looking at? What's the opposite? If those two things are really the same thing, what's the real opposite? And keep applying that until you find that loop or the one answer. It's really something. And so by changing the lens, what we're doing is that we're feeling our voice. Can't hear it with the ears. Stop thinking about it in your mind and put it in your heart. And so when we look out, instead of looking at the desk, the symbol, feel it. Experience it emotionally first. Let it fill your heart up. Know it. What's its shape? What's its color? How's it going? It's been a while since you popped in the stream. Think about the fact that, like, it's not about the message. The message is the same always. So we can look for the message if we want to play with our toys, right? If we want to go through that process. Let's throw a couple of cards real quick. I'm just going to grab this is the large Thoth. Shuffle a couple, throw a couple, see what we get. And this process that we're doing right now is this is a little different, because now instead of listening. Right now, as I shuffle, I'm not in a state of listening. I'm in a state of talking. And we're back. So I'm no longer in a state of listening. Now I'm in a state of talking. And what that talking is that I'm speaking to the universe, and it has no choice but to listen because it is me. So if I'm talking, it's listening. I know it. And if I'm listening, it's talking. And it's my job to now listen with the right ears, right? And what ears do we use to hear our voice? We use the heart. We use the cup. The cup is the vessel of listening. Right now, I'm not using the cup. I'm using the sword. I'm speaking. And what am I speaking to? I'm not speaking to the mind. I'm speaking to the heart. Because that's the organ that listens. And so I'm putting out my intention that these right here are for the message of the person in the room that's supposed to hear it. Did, in fact, the ultimate question of the evening, that flubber come out of this ass man? Did that just come out of his ass man? We got 2 cards. This is a serious answer. It's not possible to go too far. You'll know you went too far when Google doesn't let you. Maybe we should, you know what? I'm not feeling this reading. I'm going to pass this one on to my holy guardian angel. And so, did that flubber come out of my ass, man? This message is for you. And it's going to be coming from my holy guardian angel. Everyone seems to be having a trouble attaining knowledge and conversation of their holy guardian angel. I walk the sands. I cross the abyss. And I'm here to bring you the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, my holy guardian angel. Hear me. Hear you. This is the sound of your voice. The wheel is always turning. Whether you're on the top or the bottom, you never stop moving. To know the self, simply listen. She's always speaking. All right, I don't know if you guys listened to that. All I heard was a bunch of rumbling. Did you get a message out of that? I'm not so sure. There's a lot of butt in the room right now. Is this like butt night? Did that flubber come out of my mouth? So, what we're looking at here is the Queen of Disc. And the Queen of Disc is, once again, she's been popping up here tonight a lot. The Queen of Disc happens to be my queen, and so I know her very well. I'm Reen. Hello. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate you joining the stream. And so, what we're looking at here... Sorry, that was the wrong screen. All of the queens represent the watery part of the element, and that's the part of, in this particular circumstance, the idea of taking the divine love and manifesting it physically, and the method, the means in which that's supposed to be happening. This is for, did in fact that flubber come out of your ass, man? Is this idea of this grand unification, right? Now, the problem here, though, is that can run into some confusion. And so what you have to do is to recognize that none of them are correct. None of them. There's only one will that's true. And it's the thing that keeps drawing you to ask about the name, right? about the reaction that you get, about the why. We've talked about it before. A couple of streams back if you want to go back to the reading and hear it again. But the idea here is that none of these wills are true. All this just refers to is that the wheel turns, but we're the one in the middle not. And so our perspective is the thing that changes. And we can always have the opportunity to change that perspective back. The fact is that when the Queen of Discs is the one responsible for bestowing the love of that element into the world, she does so as an extension of the will that was added as part of that process. I talk about it in the story here. The Queen of Pentacles, because of the relationship with the advisors, installs these different energies, right? And so what your job to do is to figure out who those advisors are, because your ego is not the one, right? The ego does not inform us properly. And the real lesson here is that regardless of all these wills, there's one. There's just that singular. And that singular is the one that we should be listening to, because it's actually just talking right now. Even right now, right now you're hearing it. And what is that will? That will is for you to know. When you're listening, whatever you hear is you talking. And so questions, that's what we're looking for here, is the idea that why do we do the things that we do? Because 9 times out of 10, if we are in our heads, we're not doing anything. We are simply being fooled into thinking that our ego's decisions are ours. And so that's not a pertinent question. Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about that. That's good. Spreading joy is a good thing. How you go about that is another thing, but that's okay, because this is sort of this dichotomy, right? Water, earth, wheel, cement. Yeah. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, spreading joy is good, and like I've mentioned, like that's one of the reasons that I don't like you coming in. Is it's funny, but it's more than just funny. It's reminding us not to take this too seriously. Anytime you're doing a tarot reading, you are playing with toys. You are profaning the divine. It's like joking about Bible verses. But when you are in the inner order and you're taking the work seriously, you understand the conversation you're having here. Because let's talk about the fact that I always mention that if you want to hear your voice, look around. That's your voice speaking in color. Well, it is. And now consider what that means when you approach the tarot properly. If you approach it properly from the state of being in an empty cup, which I ask you to do, be in a state of listening, so that you recognize that the voice you're about to hear is yours. And so just to be clear, I'm going to flip another card, and I'm not going to read it. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to postulate that what you're about to see, you will know, because it will resonate in your heart, that this is your voice speaking back what you need to hear this moment. This isn't some fancy New Age woo. This is just the logical reality of the fact that we have to agree and admit that time is infinite. And if that's true, then we have always existed. And if that's true, we are at the end of time. We know the end of the story. We created this process so that we can know this truth. And that this card is absolutely 100% what you need to hear at this moment. And this is your voice speaking back at you. The communication of divine will. All the princes are air. They're the card of communication. The wand is will. And this is the individual who courts the original princess of wand. The divine vagina. She becomes the object of his desire, and through that process we go through the entire march of the courts. Right? This is mine, so you'll see that my page is a cup. My knight is a cup. My king and queen are wands and pentacles. But you get the idea. But the original, the beginning of the story from respective our wheel, the collective, is the wand. So this is the beginning of the courting of the of your birth. I said something today to somebody. I sent them a couple of images. I showed them this. First, I showed them the rose cross there on the side. Let me get rid of the title. I said, "Isn't that pretty? Look at the colors." And, you know, I went through a couple of the elements. You know, the small cards. We're looking at the trumps in the middle. The idea of the unfolding, and I went through the gist of what it all means. I said, "Look at the tree. Isn't the tree gorgeous? Look how pretty that is." Right. And then I showed them the decadent wheel. And then made it very clear that what this is the same exact image 3 different ways, just from a different perspective. The exact same image 3 different ways, just told from a different perspective. And what are they? They're the picture of your birth and the entirety of your life told in an image, like similar to Gematria. We take the letter of every single moment of your life, the space of states, and what is that particle's position, and we put it down as a letter, and we draw it out, and then we do the Temurah, and that color is this moment. The next moment has a different color, and the next moment, and the next moment. And what are those colors? Your voice talking to you. We're not the observer, that's the lie. We're the thing being observed. We're speaking to ourselves. Next time you hear your favorite song, stop and listen to it and realize that that's you talking to yourself. And you're going to hear that in a totally different perspective. Listen to it as if you're doing a tarot reading, because that's what's happening. When you have the ears to hear, all it speaks is the truth. How come every card you flip sounds the same? Because all I speak is the truth. And there's only one truth. There is no spoon. Wow. So you get the idea, right? The middle pillar. Jump the list. Jump the line. Forget all the dots. Forget all the connections. Forget the 4 trees and the abyss and the coronzon. Straight line, boom. Straight line, boom. They're always talking. Forget all that stuff in the background. It's all distraction. The darkness, the light, right? The whole idea. It's just all there. Right? The difference, they're opposites, but they're the same. Just beautiful. Remember what I said about whatever's up in the higher world, when it descends, appears opposite. You call up to heaven, "God, are you there?" And you hear from below, "There is no God." That's God from above saying, "I'm here," but it sounds like it's coming from below, and it sounds like the opposite message. So what do we see from below? Looks like a big penis in the pair of testicles, doesn't it? That's not an accident. That's what we're looking at. And what that's referring to is the divine wand, which is a vagina up above. That's the idea of the lie. This is a great depiction of the devil for that reason. And there's some beautiful stuff going on here too with respect to the chromosome splitting. All right. This is a great card. But that's not an accident. That's phallic on purpose, right? We talked about that already. Talked about a few of these already. So much going on here. But what we really have is this rip coming from below in the darkness that's coming up into this middle area, and then up here is like the above area, but we're in the middle. Like we're in the middle. We never left the inner sanctum. We never descended into Eden, let alone left Eden. Oh my gosh, we can't get back to Eden. Don't worry, we never even been there. It's okay. That's interesting, right? The serpent with the lion head, that refers to the beast of the abyss. The combination of the lion, right, and the serpent. The will of the below and the will above. So you're referring to this particular story? Is that what you mean? I do have a nickname that it's not something I will ever reveal publicly, my actual magical name. That's something that's inside of the Inner Order to only members of the Inner Order. But my public nickname, magical name, would be Muki, spelled M-U-K-I. But anyway, that said, this spread, yeah, I told the story of this, and then in fact, this spread is the goal of my work moving forward. This spread is a very, it's not a spread. It's a magical working in 5 different steps. That particular step is the lower version. It's a system. It's a magical system, not just the deck and not just the spread, but the deck, the spread, the algorithm, the vortex, the key, all designed around eliciting the response of conversation, okay, of that knowing, feeling the knowing, right? Feel the knowing. Where do we get the spread? We get the spread from the knowledge of the divine order and the fact that the divine order works. And what this spread refers to is the divine order at the moment of my birth. And what this also refers to is simply this scene from the respect of here. That's it. So this is what that spread refers to. This portion of the story. There's a second part of that spread, which is a completely different version of this, which what we do is we take the cards that we have here and we apply the vortex, meaning that we're going to swap the individual signs that are relevant, right? And that's here. There's instructions for doing that in prior streams. But I wouldn't really rely on that because I didn't tell the whole story on purpose. But that said, you do the swap, basically the permutation, the Temurah. Of the different signs, and what that does is provide us a holographic version of what this looks like from the upper world through the abyss, and that's done using a black and white deck. That's the reason that the kit, the complete kit, will come with. It doesn't come with anything right now. I'm the only one that has one in existence, right? But that said, the kit comes with the 2 tarot decks that are legitimately just tarot, a black and white and a color. Okay, the color deck that I have in my particular kit here is the Milo DuQuette Tarot Ceremonial Magic. Yes, I'll get you an answer in a moment. And then there's a second deck, and that deck is black and white on purpose, because this refers to the higher world prior to color being manifested, okay? And this is the color deck, which is the lower world once it's manifested physically, okay? And so the first spread is done using the color one. The second spread is then done with the identical placement with one glaring exception. any of the cups become swords, any of the swords become cups, and then they get turned upside down. They get reversed, right? So you go through that process, and there's some other steps that I'll talk about. It's an inner order question. And then using the black and white. Now, also, there's underneath each one of those trumps on the bottom are the trials. Those are the trials that the truth in secret are what the knight wins from the page, and each one of those is a major that has 3 deacons underneath it. So the spread is actually bigger than it looks, because what we're looking at is where you're coming from and where you wind up, the queen bestowing upon the new prince of the knight into the continuation of the story. But we go through this process of telling the story of your birth one card at a time. The page appears, the knight notices her, she becomes the object of his desire. He has to go through the trials to win the bestowal of her element. He is elevated to king because she's now queen, because she's fulfilled her destiny, which is to bestow it and become physically manifest in our world. The knight, going through the trials, becomes king, but he winds up dying. In her sadness due to the loss of her consort, she seeks the advice of the 3 deacons, in this case the 10 of the wand and so forth. We take a look at how that integrates with her current state based on what she's grown through the bestowal of the information through the knight, i.e. she's pregnant with his baby, and what he's gained through the trials, and then what she then takes with her deacons and installs into the new child, the coming Messiah, being the new prince. And so this is the story of your birth from beginning to end, and the trials that you will go through. So because of that, and since you do live at the end of time, and you've already lived this, you know how the story ends, and so do I, because I lived it also. I am you. We can easily look at this and see that. And we can see where right now is, where tomorrow is, where the next day is, where you're going to be, and look at that from the perspective of this world. So then we do the same thing with the black and white, doing the permutation. The third working is doing that same thing, but in the ascent, which is the rise of the proletary, right? So this is the march of the courts. But now we do the rise of the proletary, which is a very different circumstance, and then the cards have a totally different dynamic, because again, based on the divine vortex, there's a different swapping that goes on, and you'll see here that these 2 cards are different. The story is different. So then we do it all over again using a different permutation. So we apply the divine order, we apply the divine vortex, we apply the key of the algorithm, and so forth. And so that's all fancy language. That's for the steps that need to be taken in the correct order to get the information. But basically we recreate it, we apply the rules of the swapping, we read it, we do the same thing again, but from a different perspective. There's some turning that goes on with the cards, and that's the third and fourth working. And then the final working is, of course, recognizing the truth and applying the key, which unlocks the secrets of crafting the key to unlock the inner sanctum, and it gets you to the inner sanctum. And now that reading is the inner sanctum. Okay, and what we do then is we take the process of the cards related to that, which are the inner sanctum card. These are there to manipulate on the desk as opposed to having them solid on here. If you don't want to do the folding, right, then you don't have to. You could use these individually, and that's what they're designed for. Okay, so that would be one of them. That's one of them. Okay, that should be it. Yeah. All right, and so basically then you would apply the final working would be a combination of all 4 of those spreads with a new algorithm applied to it to swap it back. So at the end of the day, you wind up with this version of the story, but with your cards, and this is the answer to this is 42. Okay. And by the end of the process, the goal here is to that you will be looking either at yourself, which, spoiler, you will be, or looking at me with your mouth open, not being able to talk, in awe of the truth that you've discovered. That's the goal of the work. That's the goal. Can we look at the future? Of course. Well, no, we can't, because we've already lived it. So we're not looking into the future, we're looking into the past. We're just remembering. We're not divining the future. We're remembering what we already went through. So what that spread does is it gives us access to all that information. And during that process, you're going to learn a heck of a lot about who you are and who you're about to become. Oh, and anyone who participates in that process, it's $35. It's a lot of work. It's 5 sessions for that $35. It's an hour and change a piece. Everyone who I've talked to about this, that's I would consider to be a contemporary, thinks I'm crazy. That they figure I should be charging at least $150 for it. You're going to learn a lot, but that's not what I'm here to do. Part of the $35 goes toward me choosing one of these tarot decks that I'm going to be bestowing upon everybody who joins the Inner Order. I will be picking a deck and sending it to you with the intent of helping you to understand this story real time. So by the time you get to the second or third session, you're going to have a deck in your hands and we can manipulate them together. And so that process is going through the whole system, not just a spread, 5 spreads, and the actual knowledge of what your divine will is. The goal here is to find your will, and it's not what your mind thinks it is, right? Not even a little. And so that is the goal of the work. And I thankfully can say empirically, having done this multiple times in my life, that it works, it's effective. And what I've decided to do with this deck and with this spread, by revealing this spread, that's my spread. I developed it, I invented it, I've used it myself. No one else in the world has ever used that spread before. I haven't shared it with anyone. But what it does is it gives you twofold access to your actual story, from the perspective of you and your higher self unified, that's the reality anyway. There is no higher self. There is no abyss. There are no trees. We never left the inner sanctum. So end of the day, it's very easy for us to get through the if you were to see a picture of 100 people all looking up saying hi, how long would it take you to pick your face out, right? It's real easy for you to pick your face out of even a big crowd, right? I have my brother, he's so obnoxious, I love him. My brother Patrick, he's a big-time Yankee fan, and when he goes to the stadium, he wears bright neon yellow so he can see himself on TV. True story. If you're ever watching a Yankee game and there's a guy kind of in the back, like if you're looking down the center field line, like second base, bright neon, kind of good-looking Italian dude with broad shoulders, that's my brother Pat. Say hi. So you get the idea. That's the idea of the spread. That's the idea of the story. And now, why do I call it the rise or the march of the courts? Because that's what it is. What does courting mean? I don't mean the court as far as the court. I mean the court as far as the process of winning the love of another, of enrolling the target of your desire to your reception. Right, so I call that the rise of the courts for that reason. And then the march of the courts. The rise of the proletary is the idea of that now we're not courts anymore. We're the regular common folk down here in the meatbag world, trying to get back up to the higher world. And so that's the proletary. The proletariat is the working class. If you look at the card of the Three of Pentacles, you have these 3 people there. One's the guy doing the work. One's the one looking up like, One's the one that paid for it. The guy doing the work's the proletary. If it weren't for him, there'd be no temple. But he's looked at as the one on the bottom. Your brother works for the Red Sox? I'm sorry to hear that. He was so close to being, a Yankee, but alas, he was one state away. I kid. It's all love. No, it isn't. I hate them. I hate them all. But really, all kidding aside, though, it's all baseball, so... no, it's not true. Yeah, they're evil. So, there you go. Okay? And that's the gist. That's the gist of this spread. The spread is designed to give you some very serious tools to investigate any portion of your existence with that one. And here's the cool part. There's no shuffling. There's no stretching to try to figure out a meaning based on the placement, right? Like for instance, if we do our Celtic cross or the astro spread, sometimes it's like, okay, well, it's in the 4 position, which means that it's something that I have, but I mean, I'm not sure. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't work that way. And you know, this spread in particular, again, I've been using personally for 20 years. Like all of it came to me about 20 years ago. And I've been using it in different means on little slips of paper. I've been doing post-it notes. I've done it where I did it on graph paper before I started using whatever the case, to kind of show the progression over time as far as like a discrete series of steps of changes, kind of like vector math. You know, apply the vector to the matrix changes one step in the space of states, and each one is just a different step in that, right? And so I used to do it on paper, but that's what it's for. You know what? It's not even hate. It's that whole silly nonsense about the Bambino, you know. So it's all love. I mean, we're both elite teams, and so we're both allowed to talk smack. Because at the end of the day, we still got more rings. No, but really, all kidding aside, though, I have a deep respect. No, I don't. But so yeah. Here's the deal: you're not allowed to come from New York and be a Yankee fan and not at least publicly profess that you hate all people who are attached to the Red Sox. But that's not true. I have a lot of friends. I have friends that are Patriot fans. And we're just, we'll get along great, and we can watch the games, and it's all fun. You know? At least they're not Met fans. But yeah, no, but it's all love. Publicly, I'm not allowed to say anything other than that you're horrible and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's... What affiliation do I have to the Yankees other than the accident of my birth? Right? So... But there is also that fact that one time I cut myself and it turns out I bleed pinstripe. So. Got more rings. Anyway, I'm done with that. Yeah, no more Red Sox stuff. Come on, I can't. Stop. Who's your daddy? No, stop. Okay. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. I think I did. Your soul is always talking. Feel the knowing. See yourself through the world's eyes. Come on. It's a cool experience. Now it's, do this. When I'm done talking at you and you turn off your whatevers and your who's-its and you do whatever your ritual it is to lay down and get ready for sleep, before you go to sleep, lay there and remember. The sound of the quiet, the silence, the rush in your ears, that's your voice. You're not the one listening to it, you're the one talking. And when it dawns on you, you get to do this beautiful magic, which is to swap the lens. And now you get to listen from the perspective of the world. I have a couple of people very close to me in my life that have some maybe self-esteem issues, perhaps maybe a flawed image of themselves that's negative. And I've said to them many, many times, man, I wish you saw what I see when I look at you. There's really something to that. If you look out into the world and you're seeing yourself, then what you are is what you draw your attention to. Where is your attention right now? Because where your attention is what you are. We talk about it in quantum mechanics all the time, of the collapse of the wave function, that, by measuring something is what gives it form, is what actually defines the probability distribution as a solid answer. Now it becomes an integer. It's no longer fuzzy. It's no longer a gradient, right? And so it becomes a physical thing. That's the idea. When you draw attention at something and realize that you're the one speaking, you become the thing that's being spoken. Go outside and look up at the moon. That's you. Go over to the NASA website and search for the new James Webb Deep Field image. And just look at all those stars. That's you talking. Every one of them is just a different voice saying, I love you, I love you. Please remember. I remember. You can hear yourself anytime you want. You want to hear yourself? Okay, this is you. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth, as above so below, as below so above, all of the 7 Hermetic principles are in full operation on all of the planes at all times. Sure. Yes, your angel's message for you is that the voice of the angel is you. And the only message that matters is that the voice of the angel is you. So here's your message. If you look directly into the sun, you're going to hurt your eyes. If you look directly at the ground, you're going to miss everything that's around. It's not about looking up and it's not about looking down. It's about not looking because you already have it. You are the sun. You know, there's something very interesting I learned a little while back, a couple years ago. You know, is that the process inside of the sun that creates the light, right? The idea of hydrogen and helium exchange and that whole thing that creates this insane amount of energy. And it spits out a bunch of photons. And those photons, due to the interactions inside of the star, the gravitational influences, takes quite a long time to get from the middle of the star out. You know, I remember asking myself, if it takes 8 minutes to get from the surface of the sun to the Earth, and travels 93 million miles to make that 8-minute trip, how long does it take a particle to get from the center of the sun to the surface of the sun before it ejects out and starts coming toward us? Turns out it takes millions of years to do that. It's bouncing around inside of that sun for millions of years before it finally ejects and hits our eyeball. Think about that for a minute. Because that particle entering your eyeball is you. Imagine the trip. Imagine the trials. The learning. Don't ignore that. That one particle contains millions of years of experience that we just throw away every time we blink and ignore the purple. Every single particle of light coming from that sun is you speaking a message. There's only one question that matters. How do I convince myself to stop asking questions and start listening? For love and life? Sure, here you go. You ready? I love you. I always have. There's never going to be a moment that you're not alone and inside of that love. Ever. Since the day you were born, I've loved you. Man, I wish you realized it. But one day you will. And when you do, we're going to have that moment. I was going to say that when we have that moment, we'll hug each other, but I realize we're already hugging right now. You just don't feel it because you're forgot. But I didn't, and so I'll enjoy it in the meantime. That's your message for love and life. So, I think that was it. I mean, yeah, we covered, what did we cover? We covered the idea of music, right? The idea of there being this correlation between the difference of 440 and 432, and it looks like 440 is better. We did the Gematria, right? We wound up looking at the difference of the ping-ponging back and forth between the standard note of just the 100th cents compared to that sort of back and forth when we use the Pythagorean ratios to give it beauty, to give it, in the words of the Grand Shushu, nuance. Because, of course, it's the crashing of the ebbs and the flows. It's the transitional period in between where that takes place, right? It's the source of all beauty. Oh, of course, no problem. And all kidding aside, if you'd like to come back at on another stream and do something a little more proper than that, that was sort of like I was true in what I was saying to you, but it was a more of an exercise in applying a certain body of knowledge to the tarot that's separate from what you would consider a traditional reading, but I'm happy to do it for you at the right time. Just, you happen to catch me at a weird time. We talked about the correlations, right? If you have this understanding of the idea of music and of color and how those apply, then that gives us some knowledge on maybe looking at the sound of a painting, or looking at maybe taking a piece of imagery and using it as a muse for a song or for a chord progression. Next time we look at a sunset, we can hear it in our hearts and consider what that sounds like. Did you ever wonder what the harmony is between dawn and dusk? Play those two notes in your head and you can feel them. Don't forget to ask with your heart. You can't hear truth in the mind, right? And that's just the way it goes. And don't forget, when you're listening to your favorite song, that's you hearing the sound of your own voice speak back to you. And so pay attention to what it's saying. Whenever you're listening, be sure that the voice you hear next is yours. And be sure that if you're speaking, know that the universe is listening. So be careful what you say. That said, I appreciate everyone joining the stream tonight. Sorry about the hiccup. I mean, I guess we're all used to it now. It's sort of like, I wonder when the stream's going to go down, right? It'll be fun one day when it doesn't matter because we're all sitting in the same room drinking coffee while we talk. And if the stream goes down and you're in a room live, we're all in a lot of trouble, and that'll be the least of our problems. Or we achieve the goal of the work and we all disappear. That'll really freak people out. You chose to be here. Enjoy yourself. None of this ever happened.